Welcome to the Strategy Sherpa Show,
I guess
a
this is
series
my
of
time.
organic discussions between hosts David Chavez and a variety of notable business leaders centered around their most significant failures and how they handled those challenges, so listeners can learn from their most teachable moments and apply the lessons to their organizations. Now, here's your host, David Chavez.
Hey everyone, this is David Chavez. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show, and really excited this morning. I'm on the West Coast, so it's very early in the morning, and still trying to wake up, but have an amazing guest here for everyone today. Dawn Hendricks, and Dawn is with FM Talent. We'll come over to Dawn in just one moment. So just wanted to say hello to everybody out there and welcome them to the show. We just got done at Assured Strategy having our, we do it semi-annually, a company training for a couple of days in Phoenix. And then on Saturday, we had the pleasure of floating down the Salt River and having a good experience doing that as a team. It was just a lot of fun. And so, Dawn, do you guys do anything like that where you go out? Because I know you like to have fun.
So I definitely like to have fun. Our fun is centered more around cocktails and eating.
The good stuff. The good stuff. All right. All right. Well, welcome, Dawn. Welcome to our show. I'll take a few seconds, and why don't we let the people know who you are and where you come from? And I always love it when people do their own bio because they put in the really important things that they want people to know, because a lot of people that come on our show are pretty well rounded and have pretty good careers. So share a little bit about your background. Like, where did you go to college and where did you grow up?
Sure. Yeah, I am a native Washingtonian, so grew up in the DC metro area, a little place called Fort Washington, Maryland. I always tell folks that I have had two careers. So I used to be a professional dancer, so doing shows that used to be on Broadway. I had the great fortune of living in LA, pursuing that dream. I went to college, so prior to pursuing the full-on expression of that dance career, my parents made sure I got my college degree, which I got from Hofstra University in Long Island, New York, in business administration, and I got my graduate degree from American University here in the good old Washington, DC area. And, I feel very fortunate because I have had great success doing two things, right? So doing TV, doing film, doing theater as a professional entertainer, and then being able to translate that discipline into my professional career around what I do now, which is consulting and recruitment for the, federal government, commercial enterprise, and nonprofit entities. So I am the president and CEO of FM Talent, and we have been in business for now over 20 years. So I started when I was 2.
All right, 22. But now we know how old you are. Thank you for sharing that, Dawn. With the master's degree from American University too. So.
That's right. I did a lot very early.
I got it. Like at 10, you were at the college.
Exactly.
All right, that's great. I love it, and it's just funny. So my daughter went to American also. So yeah.
So I didn't get to experience it probably the way she did because I was working full time. I had a child, so I was definitely, working in a cohort program. It was a full-time program, but it was part-time, just a few days a week.
So you went on and you danced. How long did you dance for?
So, I grew up dancing, doing all of the competitions. After I graduated from undergrad, because I lived in New York, I used to take these classes And so when I was there, an agent saw me. And so I actually got picked up by this agency, Bobby Ball. So, and I got booked in a show really quickly after that. So I would say, probably about 4 years after that happened, I was a full-time entertainer doing
What show
TV.
were you on?
So I did Ally McBeal. I was in Cinderella. So if you all remember that great diverse cast that they did with Whitney Houston, Brandy, Whoopi Goldberg. So I was a performer in that. I did a movie, my own trailer, because I was had a principal role in this movie called Mafia.
Uh-huh.
I did a lot of videos and things like that. So I did a fair number of things while I was out in LA.
Yeah, well, that's just great. And it was funny because when I met you the very first time, before I was speaking to a group you belong with, and I met you, and I was like, this lady is just very warm and easy to talk to. And that must be a little bit of that training from the acting days, because you just, I know it's you, but it's just really, you make people feel really comfortable when you meet them, and that's sort of like a gift for you, isn't it?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm not the only one that tells you that. I am sure of that.
I'm this over the top extrovert that likes to have a good time, and I love people.
Mhm.
So, birthed out
Comes
of that is, kind of making sure that people feel comfortable in the spaces that I am in. So.
Yeah, yeah, and it's very natural for you. So I think that's a big gift. And so how long have you had FM Talent? How long have you been running this company?
Yeah, it has been 20 years. So in January, we had our big anniversary celebration.
Mhm.
But yeah, I started this with a great friend of mine, Amari Franklin, 20 years ago. It's still hard to believe that, I've been doing this that long. But yeah, we started out purely recruitment. Of course, things happen, you pivot. And so now we do both recruitment and consulting for the federal government.
Okay, very good. And what made you guys get into this business?
Yeah,
What was
well,
your
when
thinking at
we
the
we
time?
worked for a large corporate organization, and we were doing the recruitment for that across many disciplines. So finance, accounting, investor relations. So, a lot of very specific niche recruitment services. And while we were there, we were working with a lot of different vendors, and I was just really disappointed with the quality of service that I received from those vendors. And I felt like, well, we collectively felt like if we could put our spin on how we're delivering services, this could be a great value to industry at large. And the flip side of that same coin is, our opportunity to really consult and support the candidates was very limited. And I really wanted to be able to help connect people to opportunities that they may not ordinarily have access to. And where we saw opportunities for them to develop their skill set in a way that will help them actually get the job that they desire, we wanted to be able to pass along that information. And so on the corporate side, you really don't have the opportunity to provide that level of insight and feedback for candidates in the way that we wanted to.
Yeah, and I've known a lot of people who have owned recruiting companies over the years. I would ask you, like, what is one of the hardest things about your business that just you find that's the challenging part, but the part you've really done well?
Yeah, so the challenging part is finding the right resources that are going to fit the organization. And right is very subjective, right? And right is, a great candidate may not be the right person for, company X, right? And so understanding how to pull that thread, understanding what the customer really is seeking, and then being able to match that up. Now, the challenge of that is getting the customer to really be able to unpack what that is, right? So in this microwave society that we live in, people don't want to spend the time to do some of that kind of work that helps us to make a better match and better alignment for them in the shortest amount of time. So that's what I would say is our challenge.
Yeah. So the challenge being getting the people that are applying for the job, making sure they're a good fit with it. But I think I heard you say making sure that the business owner or the person that's hiring somebody really understands what they want and need, right? So it's probably more of that, because it's easier to probably go find that person
That's
if
right.
they understand what they want and need.
That's exactly right.
Okay, that's very interesting. I've used a couple of recruiters in the past, and I don't think that I felt like they were approaching it from that point of view.
Yeah.
So very interesting.
Yeah, we do a lot of metrics here, and metrics on the stickiness of the candidate, right? We want those candidates to stay with the place that we're putting them. And so the only way for us to do that is to really have a strong understanding of where they're ultimately going. So
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'll tell you, because as you know, I talk to a lot of business owners, and you do too. And I would tell you that's a great frustration for them, that their recruiter doesn't really take the time to understand what their needs are, and then really use that information to go out and find the right candidate. So
absolutely.
And you say, well, that's what recruiters do. In theory, yes. But a lot of them don't do it as well as others do. And so it sounds like you guys really put your weight in trying to make sure you understand what the needs are, and then making sure you're finding those needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it takes a lot of upfront work, right?
Yeah.
So it takes the time on the front end so that we can be, quicker in making that on the back end. And therein lies the challenge.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of people they don't want to pay recruiters fees a lot of times, because they say it's expensive. But recruiting fees a lot of times are done on contingency, and so those contingency fees, you'll spend a lot of money just doing the discovery you were talking about, then doing the marketing for that person. So there's a lot involved in this process. I think recruiters get a little shortchanged, like it's just easy, they're just doing some interviews. Well, if they're really good, that's not their approach.
That's right. And I always tell folks, we don't pluck folks off trees. So, we're not manufacturing people. So, that's the other piece of trying to figure out, how to make this make sense for that organization where you don't get all of the boxes ticked.
Right. Yeah, you don't have a little tree factory in the back.
No.
I'll take this one, please.
That's right.
All right, Dawn. Well, hey, we got off to a good start, got a little bit of information about you, and then we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit, because at Strategy Sherpa Show, what we do is we try to have business leaders talk about decisions they made that didn't turn out as well as they thought they would at the time they made them. And then what we had to do to get ourselves out of the situation we put ourselves in. And I've shared some doozies over some of the shows. And so we'll have you right back, and we'll get started in talking about what it was that happened to you in your company. So this is Strategy Sherpa Show. We'll be right back after this break.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
All right, everybody, this is David Chavez. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show, and I have guest Dawn Hendricks on. and her and I are just talking about recruiting and her recruiting company, FM Talent. And Dawn, as I said right before we went on the break, this is the time when we usually start talking about one of our moves that we made in our business. And at the time when we made the move, it didn't seem like we were gonna make a mistake, but sort of turned out that way. And so I'm looking forward for you to share with everyone what you did.
Okay. As
Okay.
far as mistakes,
Yeah. There's like a decision you made in your business at the time. It seemed like a great decision, right? Because these decisions, just sometimes with the information we have at the moment we make the decision, it seems like the best option.
yeah.
And then a month goes by or a week goes by and everything starts exploding around you, and you realize that, boy, this is not the right decision.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think for me, it was really delaying and bringing in those people that are smarter than me, those subject matter experts that I could use to really build this enterprise into what I had in my mind. And if I'm being honest, it was really just my ego that kind of delayed that, process, right? Because I think you all can infer that I was relatively young. I wasn't two, but I was very young when I started this organization. And so there were a lot of things that I had to learn on the fly. And I think my own fear of not having done a lot of things, I didn't quite know how I was going to be able to lead these people that were so much smarter, capable, had done these things that I wanted to bring into the organization. And it really hamstrung us, me not making that decision sooner. I think it really showed its head when my business partner decided that he wanted to retire. And then I was like, okay, well, what is this organization going to be? I don't have leaders here that can help execute and carry out any of the operational tasks that are necessary for this organization to not only thrive, but to survive. And it had to smack me in my face to really get me to realize that I had to rethink what I was doing and how I was going to do it.
Okay, so your partner's leaving the company. This is how long have you had the company at this point?
So at this point, I'd say about 14 years.
Okay, so you've been in business for 14 years. Your partner comes to you and says, "Hey, I think it's time for me to hang it up." And I'm assuming that person was quite a bit of a mentor to you and allowed you to take the business to where it was at 14 years later. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, I don't know mentor, but we were partners, right? And so he was that person that, I always say we were the yin and yang, right? And so we had complementary strengths and weaknesses. And so where I had a weakness on the financial side, I had a strength on the, marketing and kind of getting out and, positioning the organization or the business development side. And when he was gone, and we tried to do a lot of these things, ourselves with the organization being more of a manageable size. But when he decided to retire, I realized that how we were doing things probably wasn't optimal. And if we really wanted to move beyond where we were at that particular time, I couldn't do it all myself with the staff that I had. And for sure, we had staff, right? But not the staff that could take us to the next level. And so I had to quickly get over myself. I had to really figure out, all right, what are those right people that need to be on the bus, to use a Jim Collinsism, who needed to be a part of this organization that could take us from here and get us there. And it took me a little bit of time to assemble it. but actually 2 years to assemble it.
Okay.
And when I say 2 years, it's because I had to get clear on what I actually needed to, kind of be in those right spots. And so it kind of was a little bit of making some adjustments along the way to be able to get that right formulation for us.
So what you're saying is that your partner retires, you're in this situation where you have a lot of leadership in the company, but none of them can really lead the organization. You have strengths and talents more on the extroverted side of a personality, where you're good at bringing in work, going and talking to people, connecting with them, making them feel special, all those things that customers want to feel.
Yes.
And you're bringing the work into the office, and then it's maybe not getting done as well as it used to, because these people just they don't understand the intricacies of what was involved that your partner really understood. So maybe didn't have very good training for some of these people, is some of my assessment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you just had to make a decision. Am I going to just putter around with this company and be a small company and stay in this zone, and I'm going to be pulling my hair out all the time and doing 15 jobs, or am I going to really fix this problem?
Right.
Which I think probably the biggest problem around this, because this is probably the number one problem I deal with in the work we do. And you have to get out of your own way and say, hey, I need better people around me. And it's really hard, because those people that are around me now, I do have loyalty to them.
That's right. So that's the hard part, right? Because they've been with you a lot of years. And then to say, hey, I don't know that, this is the right fit for where we're going is challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you lose any of those people during that time?
Yeah, so we had to certainly make some of those decisions to transition those roles. And so it was more along the lines of figuring out what the right roles were for the organization going forward. And then, again, allowing those folks to be considered for those roles, but also opening that out externally to get people that had actually operated in those capacities and could help us, again, get us where we wanted to be.
Yeah, and at this time, if I'm not mistaken, when you and I were originally speaking, wasn't your 8A expiring at that time too? And those of you who don't know what 8A is, it's a special program that the federal government has for small business, minority business owners, that they have a special portal that they can bid on government contracts through, and it gives them an elevated status, because otherwise you wouldn't probably get many or any contracts, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it is a smaller pool that we compete against, as opposed to the full and open, bidding. So yes, that was the other thing that had happened. Our 8A was expiring.
How many years did they give you?
9 years.
Okay. And so that happened after you and your partner started your business. And so now it's expiring. He's gone. You're trying to figure, oh boy, it's like the things
The
all
perfect storm.
Yeah. I was going to say everything came at one time. So at that time, you were making decisions like, where did you get stuck? I mean, so you're thinking about all these things. You understand what you probably need to do, but understanding what to do and doing it are two different things.
Right.
So how did you get to the point where you were doing it? Because I'm sure there was a little bit of a delay there. It may not have been a long delay, but there was a delay, right?
There was absolutely a delay.
Okay.
Because I didn't immediately recognize that I had an issue. because we were still making money. People were still reaching out to us. I mean, so I was believing my own hype that I was this great company.
Right.
And then then the reality, when you don't have the vehicle and customers aren't calling, and then I'm realizing, oh, it really wasn't FM Talent that they loved. It was this 8A vehicle that they loved. And when I no longer have it, it's crickets. So all of that happened. And so, once that hit me in the face, I am a quick study, sometimes I gotta, touch the fire. But then that's when I really started trying to get all of these pieces in place to figure out, all right, how are we going to develop this infrastructure? What are the processes? What are the people? What are the resources that we need to help move us forward?
Right, and I love it because you said I had to touch the fire. So that's the thing that happens to us. We always have to touch the fire.
That's right.
So and a lot of entrepreneurs like that. So I reading between the lines a little bit, what I'm hearing is that maybe your ego got the best of you when the transition happened. So I'll just say it this way. So now Dawn's the shit, right? In her own mind. And that's not going to help you when the 8A program expires. And all these realizations start to happen. And that's when Dawn realizes she has to become a good business person now too, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And then I'm sure a lot's changed. So we're going to take a break. This is Strategy Sherpa Show. And we're going to take a break and have Dawn come back and tell us her realization. What was the catalyst that made her go click? Because her company's doing very well again. And she's on this great success path. And what would click to make that start to work for you? Because you knew you had made some wrong decisions, or you weren't making the decisions that you really needed to make, and then you started doing it. So we'll be right back after these messages. This is Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez with Dawn Hendricks from FM Talent. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
All right. Hey, everyone. This is David Chavez. This is a Strategy Sherpa Show. And I'm sitting here with Dawn Hendricks with FM Talent. And boy, have we gotten a lot of information out so far. So Dawn was going along. She's her company was part of the 8A program with the federal government, which allows them to bid on big contracts and take pieces of some of those big contracts. And we're doing great. And then her partner decided to retire at about the time the 8A is expiring. I wonder why. And then Dawn kept it going and thought, hey, everything is going to go great. The customers loved her. And then once the 8A program stopped, the customers quit calling. And she realized that, hey, something's the matter here and I need to do something. And I didn't have the right people surrounding me. That's what you said. So that's what we'll pick back up. So tell me what you did. My guess is you're in a cold, dark, lonely place. Like there's really no other way to say it. Is that a fair comment?
That is absolutely fair. It was really, when you are accustomed to having a partner and, you're making these decisions together and, you're in it together, to not have anyone with an investment in the outcomes the way that he did was very, very lonely. So the things that I did was I ended up getting a Vistage, becoming a part of a Vistage group. So a peer cohort group with other CEOs that I could, have these shared collective experiences with. Being at the top of the food chain is a lonely place. And needed to be able to talk about issues that I was dealing with and kind of hear how others have been able to navigate them. And so I would say that was a really pivotal and transformative thing for me in my journey. As I was assembling this team, as I was trying to figure out how to lead this team into uncharted territories, things that we really hadn't done previously, trying to set up infrastructure and processes and which tool, I mean, just the whole 9 yards, because I eviscerated this organization. So I recreated the senior leadership team, and then we had to really peel back the onion to look at what we had to then be able to create what we wanted going forward.
Okay, so you tore apart the leadership team. When you were doing that, some of the people that moved on, maybe they didn't share values with you.
They just didn't have the expertise to take us. I think the values inside the organization and the culture have been things that we have been strong, have been our strength. The know-how, the operational excellence, the having repeatable processes, those disciplines are the things that were lacking for us.
Right. So a lot of times when companies start, they'll take the people that they hire at first and they'll promote them as they're going along. We don't do a really good job of training these people as we're promoting them. We're promoting them more because they're good at their jobs.
Yeah, we like them. They're loyal, all of
they
these
behave
things.
Right. Those types of things, right?
That's
Like
right.
you just said, your core values was good, but then their competency level of able to do that job may not be as high as we thought it was when we were making the promotion, or we've grown beyond their skill level.
Yeah. And I think that's more of what it was. I mean, I think it was right and great for the time frame. And then as we continue to evolve and grow, or as my vision changed, then we needed to have, those resources that had a skill set or competency that aligned with that.
So you had to go and have many challenging conversations with people.
Yes.
Because you're basically going to them and talking to them about their competency level not being high enough to really sit in the position that you have them in.
Yes.
Not an easy conversation.
No.
So share with us what you did in those conversations, because I'm your employee. We can pretend like I'm your employee, and you're getting ready to have this conversation with me. How do you start those off?
Yeah, so I think it really is letting the new position description and the new role do the heavy lift.
Okay.
Right. And so the conversation really was around the organization's evolving and kind of changing, and what the needs are now versus kind of when we were operating. And, somebody said this to me and I was highly offended, but now that I've moved beyond it, I can actually agree that this is where we were. We were very mom and pop. And so when we were in that mom and pop kind of making stuff up as you went along, we were able to get by with things. Now, as we're trying to evolve and grow, we really need to lean on infrastructure, operational excellence, processes. And so I need people who have actually developed those types of things. And so it was not so much as the person was a bad person and we were just tossing them aside. It was just more that what we needed to kind of create inside the organization was different. So that's how I approached those conversations.
So what you did was build new job descriptions for that position.
Yes.
then went over it with the people who were sitting in the position, getting them to realize that some of their talents didn't match up to your needs.
That is correct.
Okay, and then I love that way you did it. That I mean, I've had this issue in the past myself, and I don't think I did it that well.
Mm.
And I sure didn't do it the way you're talking about right now. Later on, I probably did, but the early on, I did not. And it caused me a lot of issues with having the conversations because it's very personal then, and there's a whole bunch of different things. So it sounds like you kept it out of the personal side and just then they could understand that it's just they don't have the 15 years experience that you need them to have. They have 3.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And in most of the instances, you know, folks come to the realization themselves, right, that there is a gap or a mismatch in kind of, you know, what we're seeking. So it was a lot easier from that perspective. And because culture is kind of who we are and what we do, you know, we were able to make those transitions in a way that that made sense on both sides.
Okay. And did you end up keeping any of those people or just maybe realigning them to a different position?
Yeah, a few of them were realigned to new positions. And but there were, you know, those that just did not remain.
Yeah. And what happened to the company? Because obviously, what made you realize this? I always say there's some kind of inflection point in a company where, you know, maybe somebody's called you a mom and pop, and that was a little bit of an inflection point for you because, you know, when they said it to you at the time, you probably got defensive. And you felt like they were attacking your ego and like you had all these reactions to it, like you're a victim of their comment that
Right.
made to you. And then you had the realization. So how did you change your mindset when you were in that place?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things was really hearing what other CEOs were doing. It really helped me to actually see you're not really as sophisticated and mature in your operations as you could be. So there's a great opportunity for that. And the other thing that kind of was happening at that same time, I don't even know how I found this book, but 4 Disciplines of Execution found its way into my lap. And when I read it, it just totally transformed my thinking about how we were actually going to execute what my vision was. And so I think those 2 things happened around the same time and helped me to kind of propel forward. It gave me what I needed to be able to move the organization forward.
Yeah, and so in this 4 Disciplines of Execution, this Franklin Covey book, and Sean Covey, who was Stephen Covey's son, and Stephen Covey wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm gonna forget it right up. Right in
How can you forget that?
Yeah, exactly. And then the 4 disciplines fits right into that. And that's about the 4 disciplines of execution, getting the processes in place. And then you went and hired a very talented lady too, did you not?
I did. I did. So I have a lot of talented ladies.
I had the opportunity to meet this lady, and I was just like, whoa, this lady is really smart.
She's brilliant. So she's a PhD, and she had you know, like the whole team. You only got to meet one, but the whole team is comprised of those kinds of dynamic, smart women. Now I got a guy on the team, but yeah, I'm really
But
very
hold on, Don. In my mind, you know, a lot of times in a startup or a smaller company, a PhD could really drag it down. I think the really interesting thing about this lady is she puts a lot of common sense into her intelligence. I mean, when I'm talking to her, she is fascinating me how she approaches problems. We're just talking about different things in business, and I was just super impressed by her, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
so not only did you find somebody with just intelligence, but somebody who knows how to apply the intelligence.
Indeed. And that's Ventrice. She was, I think, the second of the senior leaders that I hired of the new group. So she came on early on.
Right, right. Well, it sounds like now you guys are back on path. You're doing well. You still do work with the government a
We
little
do.
bit differently. Um, and it sounds like you guys are on a great path for success. Is that a fair comment for you right now?
That is definitely a fair comment. It has been a lot of ebbs and flows, but it feels good to, be able to see the vision coming to fruition.
That's right. That's right. And to make that pivot and that transition out of that 8A program, because a lot of companies die during that process. So,
Absolutely.
all right.
Absolutely.
And it's just pretty amazing how you pulled yourself out of it and got out of your own way, really. And I think you said it really well at the very beginning. Your ego got in your way a little bit around some of these people. And when you got rid of that, that just started changing the game quite a bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were able to flourish when you have the right people, and you don't have to be the smartest person in the room.
Yes. Yeah. Well, hey, we really appreciate you being on the show with us today and sharing your wisdom with us because I think that what you just shared probably helped a lot of business leaders out there. And, every once in a while we get a show where somebody really pours their heart into it. And I could really tell you could sort of feel some of the pain you felt as you were going along because this wasn't easy for you. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing it with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez. We'll be right back after these messages. And reach out to Dawn Hendricks with FM Talent if she can help you in any way in your business. So, Dawn, do you want to give them the web address real quick?
Yep, it's fmtalent.com, and we're on all social media platforms, also FM Talent. Thank
All
you.
right. Very good, Dawn. Thank you very much. Have a great day. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
Hey, everyone. This is David Chavez. Hey, I'm just going to wrap this show up. What a very great guest. I met Dawn when I had an opportunity to speak to her Vistage group, and Dawn just, I met her. She started talking to me. I did the speech. We had a conversation afterwards, and then she started sharing with me the story she just shared. And I think this is such a hard story for business owners to share because what happened inside of her business is such a common thing, but it feels so disappointing and challenging when you're in the middle of it. And why I say disappointing and challenging, you're disappointed because you have somebody in there that's not reaching the potential of that position. And these people have helped you get the business to where it's at today. So maybe they've been with you for 4 or 5 years, or maybe even 10 years in her case, because her partner left about 11 years later. You're doing all these things, and you feel like these people, you owe them, and they just can't fulfill the role. And what she said, she had to get away from her ego. Her ego was just telling her that I have to believe in these people. I can't let them down. But she really wants to grow her company. Her 8A program had expired. That's a big benefit to small business. Small business, when we're working with the federal government, that gives them a lot of latitude on contracts and things like that, where they can win pieces of them. And I think it's just amazing how she made that transition, because so many companies just die after the 8A program ends for them. So it sounds like she really got serious about getting the right people in. And I had the opportunity to meet her COO, and what a talented lady, and very, very, very smart. Understood. Her and I started talking about processes, and she really understands processes and the importance of making sure processes are working and balancing the processes with the people aspects of using processes. So not overcomplicating or not making everything a process, but making the right things processes that are causing reoccurring problems within the organization. And these are some of the things we help companies with here at Assured Strategy. We actually help them build their processes. We look at processes to see where the gaps are. And then we also look at facilitate meetings with teams to help them figure out how to fix their processes or make them more efficient. A lot of business owners, because of my background as a CPA, talk to me about cash. Well, I would tell you that there's probably more cash in your processes than there are anything else, because there's oftentimes when we look at companies and their cash flow, it's not the financial statements that we're actually looking at, it's the operations and how efficient are the operations and how much money is being wasted through redundant processes or overlapping processes, things like that. So I loved how she talked about it. And then she went out and found the person with the people with the competency, because inside of the book Speed of Trust, that was written by another one of Stephen Covey's son, Stephen Covey Jr., or I'll call it, but that's not his name. He has different middle initial, but he actually wrote in there that we have to have the right character in the people that we work with, and as well as the right competency. And as we were just talking, the people had the character, the core values were alive. Dawn said that she had a very good culture. It was working very well. And so those things were all in line. The problem was the people just didn't know how to do the job. So my guess, and we didn't talk about this directly, but Dawn was probably working 15 to 18 hours a day, sort of killing herself to get everything done that needed to get done when she's actually paying people to do these things already. And so it became a little bit frustrating for her. And what had to happen is the pain had to get so high that she had to fix it. And that's usually the catalyst of when people fix things. And it's funny because I talk to business owners often and they'll say, I'm doing fine. Well, what does fine really mean? I'm doing great. What does great really mean? Oftentimes it just means things are going okay, and maybe a little bit of complacency settled into the business, and that's okay because we have profit. And then once the economy changes or the circumstances in my business change and the tide starts rolling out, we can see all the garbage underneath the tide, and then we got to clean up quite a bit. So sounds like she did a great job with that. Hard to admit it to yourself that maybe your ego got in the way a little bit, but I love her humility, and being a part of a Vistage group is a very powerful thing that allowed her to see some of that. But thank you very much, Dawn, for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. Now let's talk a little bit about what we have up and coming, because I have about 3 minutes left. We have a webinar this Thursday, actually, from 1 to 2 p.m. And I just spent the last few days with Warren. So we were together and doing our training in our company, but he's doing a webinar on peak performance and unleashing your potential with a performance coach. And what is performance coaching is what he's really going over, and how to use it inside of your company to get to what you need from the people that you have working with you. And this sort of ties into what Dawn was talking about today. So I think it'll be a very valuable webinar. If you found today valuable in the show, I'm sure you'll find the webinar powerful. Then Ted Servata and I, one of our Scaling Up coaches, and we're doing a webinar about financial forecasting and planning. This is going to be a really interesting webinar because we're going to talk a little bit about cash, but we're going to talk about cash and how to make sure you have enough cash and how you're measuring cash. We see a lot of smaller businesses use their checking account, and even as they start to grow, they still use a version of that to measure cash. And how do we really predict what our cash flow is going to be? Because if we're taking on some heavy growth initiatives, we need to make sure we don't run out of money in the middle of them. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to, on August the 8th, Preston Law is going to be doing it, scaling up your cash reserves now from a process standpoint. So he's actually going to be talking about cash, but cash relating to inefficiencies in your business. And that'll be a very valuable webinar that'll go into a lot of detail on there. And then my partner, Kane Petvik, on August the 22nd, will be doing Unlocking Your Potential, the psychology of accountability and SMART goals. If you don't know how to really set good goals, this is a great webinar to come to. She's going to be going through that and how you can go set goals and really realize the outcomes you're looking for. On September the 12th, we have the webinar on transforming the dreaded meetings into productive powerhouses. So really how to improve your meetings. And then Ted and I are doing a scaling up workshop on October 17th in Denver, Colorado. So come and join us in Denver. Gives you a little bit of breakdown. Also, don't forget our free offerings on our website. If you get on our website and you look about on resources, and then there's a little tab there that says free offerings down below. We offer a free valuation. Again, if you don't know what the value of your company is, you're doing yourself a great disservice, and you can see the rest of them there. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez, and I really appreciate you joining us. And thank you, Dawn, again for coming on the show. Have a great week, everybody. See you next week.